Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We are on the 13th part. Now this part talks about the story of Nabi Yusuf. In the beginning of the Surah of Yusuf, Nabi Yusuf says to his father, Nabi Yaqub, Inni ra'aytu ahada ashara kawkaban. I have seen 11 stars and the sun and the moon prostrated before me. This surah talks about us having insights into the future because the future simultaneously coexists with the present. However, there's a twist to it. At the end of the story, when Nabi Yusuf asks his brothers to bring their father, Nabi Yaqub, to him, all 11 brothers bowed to him or fell into prostration, and so did his parents. And Nabi Yusuf turned to his father and he said, هَذَا تَعْوِيلُ رُؤْيَاي. This is the interpretation of my dream. قَدْ جَعَلَهَا رَبِّي حَقًّا. Indeed, my Lord has made it come true. What that means is that Nabi Yusuf had a possible insight, had an insight into a possible future. And then when it became true, Nabi Yusuf said, Allah has made it true. What does that mean? What that means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change any destiny at any given time. So the Prophet had a dream. And then he said, Allah has made this dream into a reality. What that means is that we may be simultaneously existing within a future which is nonetheless something that can be changed. What this tells us is that the world of the dream is truly a real world if we know how to tap into it, and we are simultaneously coexisting within a multi-dimensional existence and universe. It also tells us that the future is always in a state of flux and nothing should be taken as absolute and final, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change anything. We have also Surah Ibrahim, and in Surah Ibrahim we have an interesting story of Shaytan's conversation with the people who are going to hell. Now this verse is intriguing. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. Shaytan said or will say, when the decisive judgment comes, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ الْحَقِّ. Indeed, Allah gave you a truthful promise. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ. I gave you a promise, but I broke it. وَمَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. But I had no authority upon you. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ فَاسْتَجَبْتُمُوا لِي. Save that I called you and you responded to me. I didn't force you for anything. فَلَا تَلُومُونِي وَلُومُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Therefore do not blame me, but blame your own selves. You had that inner waywardness within yourselves. I merely invited you to something that you were already disposition to. You already had that disposition. وَمَا أَنَا بِمُصْرِخِكُمْ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ بِمُصْرِخِيَّ. I'm not going to cry to you and shout to you for help, so do not shout to me. إِنِّي كَفَرْتُ بِمَا أَشْرَكْتُمُونِي مِنْ قَبْلِ. I totally deny that you associated me with God or associated with me. It was your own inner unwholesomeness and your inner waywardness and your inner corruption that has led you to this state. It is nothing to do with me. إِنَّ الظَّالِمِينَ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Indeed, the oppressive people will have a painful chastisement. Interestingly, Rumi has a note on this verse, and he says that if you were to have a scenario in which a dog mates with a sheep and they have an offspring, and you want to know what the identity of the offspring is, then place herbs before it and bones. If it rushes towards the herbs, it is a sheep in essence. And if it runs towards the bones, it is a dog in essence. He says this is what is happening with us in the story of Shaytan. Shaytan is only placed there as bones, and angels are only placed there as herbs. If we rush towards the Shaytan, then we are demonic in the first instance from within ourselves. So Shaytan is not somebody who misguides us. Shaytan is somebody who allows us to know who we are and distinguishes us within ourselves so that we may understand our true identity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in this verse, in this chapter in Surah Ibrahim, talks on that famous verse, Alam tara kayfa daraballah mathalan kalimatan tayyiba. Have you not seen how Allah gives the parable of a goodly word? كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ, like a goodly tree, like a good tree. أَصْلُهَا ثَابِت, its roots are firm within the ground. وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ, and its branches extend into the heavens. So it is totally stable. تُؤْتِي أُكُلَهَا كُلَّ حِينٍ, it gives its produce at every moment. بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا, through the consent of her Lord. وَيَضْرِبُ اللَّهُ الْأَمْثَالَ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives examples to people so that they may be mindful. Now, this verse seems to be talking simultaneously about Islam as a way of life. And it's such a way of life that it actually gives us grounding, substantive growth. The life of this world is productive. It gives fruits at every point, which means that Islam is a living religion. It's dynamic. Every era's challenges are responded to in a very befitting and an acceptable manner. Of course, it does not mean the Islam of Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam only, but it means the Islam of Ibrahim, Isa, Musa, the one true religion that has always been continuing. It can also mean the state of any individual from within when they become God-centric. Then they begin to lead a life that is very productive. Their attitudes are right, they are unwavering, they are very, very stable, they are not confused. As opposed to another verse that says, and see those people who do not have God, how they are lost within the land. They have no stability. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this tree has great stability. As opposed to this, Allah gives the example of an unwholesome tree whose roots are upon the surface and who has no stability, which talks about any ungodly attitude or a system. In this way, I think we can think about Islam that we are practicing today. It talks about killing, it talks about carnage. That cannot be the Islam of the great prophets. Finally, there is a verse in the Quran in which Allah says, وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ, Allah gave you everything that you asked for. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, and if you were to count the bounties of Allah, you will not be able to count them. Look at the sun, the moon, the trees, the air, the water, unending bounties. In any case, the verse ends, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَظَلُومٌ كَفَّارٌ, indeed man is oppressive and very ungrateful. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.